5 years ago, the great dragon Smaug was slain with a single arrow, and the dwarven kingdom of Erebor was restored. In shadowy Mirkwood, trade has resumed tentatively on the old forest road. From the lonely mountain comes metal and gems, dwarven weapons and armor. From Eriador, across the misty mountains, comes ale from Bree and pipewood from the Shirelands. For many merchants, it is a prosperous time, but not necessarily a safe one. You four know the old forest road. You've spent more time under the dark canopy of Mirkwood than most folk who aren't born here in the Elfholds, and one of you even was. There's coin and adventure to be had for anyone with a keen eye and a sharp sword. Merchants pay well for caravan guards through Mirkwood, and some of the dwarven guilds even hire pathfinders in the hopes of securing a quicker, surer route through the shadowy wood. Today, in the dim light of early morning, made darker still by the oppressive branches and foliage of this place, you find yourselves entering Mirkwood from the west, your boots carrying you down a road you've walked countless times before. But today something is different. A feeling in the back of your mind, a smell on the air. Those with sharp eyes spy something gleaming in the distance, past a bend in the trail. Those with a keen sense of smell might catch a hint of some unmistakable scents. Oiled steel and freshly spilled blood. Your fellowship is meager, but your spirits are true. What do, adventurers? We'll start off with Lionel, who's playing Elidor. As you come around this bend and spy something gleaming in the distance, what do?
Elidor stops in his tracks. He tips his head forward, not really needing to squint his eyes because he has the elven sight, and he tries to take it in, get a better vantage of it. He signals those behind him to slow down. I see something ahead. I'm not quite sure what it is. It seems to be catching the light of the sun. And then, can I tell what it is?
You can't quite yet, but you see some kind of dark shapes up ahead in the shade of the canopies of Mirkwood. You can see that there's nothing moving that you can see. It just looks like a kind of a huddle, a mass of figures. And Sigmund, coming up behind the group's hunter, you see him signal for you to slow down, and you also catch sight of the shape up ahead on the road. What do?
Sigmund kind of squints, and he takes the great shield that's been strapped to his back for the journey and begins bringing it around, placing it on the ground while he runs his hands through leather strapping. Once it's fully secure, he looks to the hunter and he says, I'm not really sure, but I'll go poke it.
Adrivar, the guide. You two see your hunter, Elidor, signal to you. You see Sigmund pull out his shield, and you two see that thing up ahead on the road. How do you react?
Edvar stands from a crouched position and looks and says, I doubt I can see what your elf eyes cannot. He squints, looks back to Sigmund, says, perhaps more caution would be in order. And he's crouches again, and he's looking more towards the ground, see if there's any information he can glean from any tracks or anything that are more nearby to us.
Absolutely. I'll give you some information in just a second. And Bretta, bringing up the rear, you see the elf signal for everyone to stop. You see Sigmund bring out his shield, and you see Adrivar kneel down. How do you react?
Greta moves maybe a little stiffly, a little slowly, but she comes up with the others and looks to see if she can see anything. Gets out her long sword and her shield and kind of stretches and gets ready for action because she knows something's coming down.
Yeah. Spending months in Mirkwood, as you all have taught you to be cautious here in this place. So, Adrivar, go ahead and give me a survival check, if you would. Elidor, go ahead and give me a perception check. And Sigmund, you said you're going to move forward?
Yeah, Sigmund will move forward kind of cautiously. As he moves forward, he grabs the handle of this hammer that's on a quick snap on his back and gives it a solid twist. Once the hammer's free, those perhaps maybe outside of this group would recognize it instantly. It's a hammer that's called Emberling. It's been passed down in Sigmund's family from father to son for many generations. Its story is probably longer than his own family, but who knows, really?
And Bretta, you can go ahead and give me a perception check as well if you're trying to peer down this down the road.
So Elidor is, for some reason, he's not able to make sense of the of what he sees ahead of him. This troubles him, just as visions in his past have troubled him. He looks to Sigmund and says, While I value your courage, it might be better if I move forward and get a better look.
Sigmund, knowing that his armor will give away his position more than him speaking, just kind of nods quietly in an attempt to try and be a little bit more silent than he actually is.
And Bretta, with that 18 on your perception check, you actually make out through the murk, through the fog of this place, you make out what looks to be a spinning wagon wheel, just kind of spinning listlessly in the air. And you kind of follow that and you make out the shape of a wagon that has been kind of tipped over onto its side. You see some other shapes kind of huddled around it, but you definitely make out the shape of a wagon.
Okay. So I kind of hiss at my comrades. I can see a wagon. It seems to be on its side. There's something very, very wrong up there.
And Adrivar, with that 13, you're not able to discern much, but you can confirm what Bretta just said, because you see these deep ruts sort of in the mud of the road of a wagon that has recently passed through.
Adrivar is crouched looking, kind of inspecting something, but looks a little confused when Bretta says this, but looks up, says, I can agree with that. He stands up. He has a hand on a belt dagger at his waist.
Okay, and Sigmund and Elidor, are you two both moving up now to the wagon?
Yeah, I was going to say Sigmund will kind of stay back upon Elidor's recommendation, but he's keeping pace enough so that if something happens to the elf, he can move in quickly.
Okay, great. So the two of you move up the road. It's maybe 40, 50 feet up the road. And once you close in on it to about 30 feet, you can definitely make out the shape of this wagon on its side. You can see that there were barrels and burlap sacks in the back of this wagon that have sort of tumbled out and rolled onto the road. And you also see bodies laying here in the road, in the mud, underneath the wagon, beside it. They're dwarves, from what you can tell, short, stout folk, likely from either returning or coming from the Lonely Mountain. You see that there's maybe 5 of them laying in the road. You see arrows sprouting from some of them as they lay still in pools of blood.
So Elidor would put a hand to Sigmund to stop him, and he would whisper. He would whisper, "They may still be about. We must be careful." And he would kind of bring his short bow around and quickly notch the string and draw an arrow and have it ready. And he would probably move to the side of the road, maybe getting a little bit of cover as I would continue to move forward towards this wagon.
My brother would be moving up with them too. And there again, I think to the side of the road, probably the opposite side from where Elidor goes. And she has her sword and her shield ready. Is moving as quietly as a very large and fairly solid woman moves.
Edrivar would be keeping pace just behind Bretta, and seeing Elidor sort of knock an arrow in preparation, he would take a short bow and be doing the same thing.
Sigmund's going to kind of break away from the pattern that he was originally on. I'll go to the wagon then. See if there's anyone trapped underneath or anything. And he kind of begins straight lining for the wagon instead of following the elf kind of in the shadows.
So with cover from all of your comrades, as you four sort of spread out and get every angle on this wagon possible, Sigmund, you move forward, and as you approach the wagon, you can see some more details. You see these arrows, and you notice that the arrows they're not elven arrows. Immediately, you can tell that the fletching on them is not the fine craftsmanship of the elves here in Mirkwood. They appear to be probably orc arrows, and you most likely have some experience with those sort of things. As you move forward, you actually see one of the dwarven bodies kind of stir and roll on its side, and you hear a grunt kind of escape from this dwarf's mouth as he rolls over.
Sigmund is going to get real close, knowing that a man this close to death, it's going to be hard for him to strain any sort of words, but anything could be useful at this point. He's got one hand on one of the arrows still, and he just gets as close as possible to this dwarf. Are you okay? Do you need anything?
The dwarf shifts so that he can look at you, Sigmund, and you see these black veins sort of creeping up his neck from two massive puncture wounds on the side of his neck. It looks like something has gotten a hold of him and bit into his neck. He rolls over and he looks at you with bloodshot eyes, blood streaming down his face. He reaches a hand out, this gloved hand, and he grips you, Sigmund, and he pulls you close as he can. He has very little strength left. You can feel his strength waning in his muscles as he pulls you close, and he says, Ogo did this. And he slumps into the mud, dead, apparently.
And I think if I could see this from where I am, Edvar would have rushed up, being trained in some healing arts, and sort of checked in, but realizing we're definitely too late for this one, and sort of fingers these blackened veins and whispers, enemies of the weapon. We were far too late.
So, Bretta, you've actually heard this name, as has Sigmund. Ogo is and Adrivar as well. You've all heard this name. He's a He's a local kind of small-time orc warlord. He's caused problems in the past, but has never been much of a threat. Most of the time, he's beaten back by the elves of Mirkwood. He has a small contingent of goblins at his command, but he's never lashed out like this, been as brave to attack the Old Forest Road.
I'm assuming that he's told his comrades about this, or that we heard. But Brett is like, Ogo, he hasn't done things like this.
Not according to the rumors.
Well, I think he has new toys. And he'll kind of take the arrow that he's been holding, and with his thumb, he just snaps over the arrow.
Orc poison.
Yeah, if anyone wants to inspect the bodies closer, you can with investigation or medicine checks. The dwarves, the bodies appear to be kind of a mixture of things that killed them. The arrow is obviously, but a couple of them have these same puncture wounds on their necks, their arms, that have these sort of black veins spreading out from them.
So Elidor, separated a bit from the rest of the group. He hears them talking amongst themselves, but he's more keen and looking down at the ground, moving some of the vegetation aside, looking for mark and signal of where the attackers may have gone. Knowing that these dwarves are already dead, not much that he can do for them now. He thinks to find the attackers and maybe track them down.
Absolutely. Go ahead and give me a survival check if you would. Adrivar, you looking over these bodies, specifically looking at the puncture wounds, you have seen this poison at work before, though never in this sort of context. This is the bite of Mirkwood spiders. And you can tell by the distinctive mandible bite marks that you're seeing on their necks and arms.
Advar is crouched again, looking at these wounds. And I assume someone, maybe Sigmund, is still close by. He says, look at these tears. And he's pointing out these punctures. So these were beast spiders. Those are spiders. And he looks very distraught at this knowledge. I hate spiders.
Well, you have me there. I unfortunately don't know too much about the spiders or human body for that matter, other than how to break it. But I know how to crush a spider as much as a man.
And the four of you spent enough time in Mirkwood to know that that though the spiders and the orcs are both agents of shadow, it's pretty rare that they will work together in any sort of fashion. Typically, the orcs are just as much a source of food for the spiders as anything else. Oh, and Elidor, with your survival roll there, you do see a pretty obvious escape path of these creatures. You see broken branches, you see boot marks, you see claw marks on trees, you see trailing black blood clearly into the dense wood away from the road itself.
So Elidor would approach the others and would say, it would seem that they do not try to cover their escape, and he would point to the very obvious path. So shall we be after them?
Does it look like Does it look like the spiders, orcs were fighting one another here? Can you tell that from the tracks?
That's a really good question.
Based on your roll, you spend a couple minutes kind of looking over these tracks, looking over this path, and you can see that it looks just seemingly like the spiders and orcs left at the same time, going in the same direction.
No, it would seem that they worked in unison with one another as allies.
That's odd. I think with an insight 20 that I roll myself, that Edvar says something along the lines of, there must be something greater at work here. That normally wouldn't be the case.
What time of day is it, Matt?
It's just after dawn.
So the others would see that Elidor looks anxious. You know, he kind of looks back to the path that the orcs and spiders took. He doesn't seem to be paying much attention to the fallen dwarfs. And it's very apparent that, he starts, maybe fingering the fletching on his arrow as he kind of looking down this path, wanting to get on after these guys.
I agree. We can head out.
Yes, let's go. We can't leave them out there. We need to find out what that is and stop it.
So the four of you, spurred on by your undeniable need to rid the world of this shadow, you set off following the path that Elidor identified for you. The path is obvious at first, but the further you get into Mirkwood, the denser the wood gets, the harder it is to follow this trail. You all have done some bushwhacking here in Mirkwood before, but it's never recommended to stray too far from the road, and you four are delving right into the heart of darkness, as it were. The deeper you get in, the farther you get from the road, the darker it gets, and even though it is midday by the time you reach your first obstacle, it looks like evening. The canopy is so dense, the foliage so thick that any light that might break through the leaves, might break through the branches, falls in sort of shafts of twilight. It's hard to discern what time of day it is, and you four know that this is part of the intoxicating nature of Mirkwood, is the fact that you sort of lose yourself, lose track of time, and people have been known to wander for days or even weeks in Mirkwood without stopping, just not knowing what time it is. As I said, you march ahead for a few hours before you come to a small ridge, and you see that on your path there appears to be a rock slide, a big sort of pile of boulders and oddly shaped rocks that is toppled right in front of you, right on the path that you've been following. There's dust kind of in the air, broken branches and things like that, which leads you to believe that this rock slide may have happened fairly recently in the last couple days or so. Adravar, I'm going to need you to give me a survival check.
It's a 14.
14, okay. So you basically have two choices here. You can try and hike over the rocks, moving them where you need to clear your path, or you can try to find a way around, which will cost you time. What would you guys like to do? You can talk amongst yourselves.
Real quick, can I do a perception roll to detect nearby enemies or ambushes? One of my things is a advantage on that.
Sure, go for it.
So I'd like to look for the ambush, really extend my bear-like senses out into the woods and see what I can find.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's see. That would be 17.
So you spend a few minutes kind of checking different areas, looking for obvious ambush points, and hearing nothing and seeing nothing. You can kind of tell that though the spiders and the orcs may have come through here, they passed through a few hours ago and have since moved on.
Okay. Well, I let my fellowship know that it's safe to continue on. Although certainly alert, but there's nothing obvious nearby.
So Elidor would look down across this rock slide and look to the others, and knowing the dimness of Mirkwood, this is his homeland. Do you think you can navigate this? It looks treacherous, but we would lose time if we go around it.
I think we can do it. What do you guys think?
Sigmund just kind of like scrunch faces, looks at it. I think we should be fine to go through, or over in this case.
I think we don't have much of a choice.
So if you're going to go through the landslide, I'll need athletics checks from everyone, please. The four of you work well together. You clamber up the rocks. It's slow going at first. The rocks are jagged. The dust in the air kind of clogs your lungs as you try and breathe and hurtle over these boulders. But eventually you crest this pile of boulders and start making your way to the other side, shoving boulders aside when you need to clear a safe path. All told, it takes you about 2 hours to finally clear through the landslide and get on the other side of this ridge. But you know that if you had tried to work your way around, it maybe would have added a day or so to your trip. The four of you continue on your march, again getting deeper and deeper into Mirkwood, pushing through moss and vines and foliage, cutting paths as you need to. On the evening of your first day, well, as far as you can tell, evening, as much as you can keep track of the hours, you find yourselves in sort of like a hollowed out cavern. It's this rock formation that kind of arches over, and there's these trees growing on the top of it with roots hanging down, creating this sort of natural wall of wood. It's almost like a tunnel sort of through the heart of Mirkwood. You start moving through this tunnel, the darkness sort of closing in around you, bare pinpoints of silvery moonlight filtering through the roots of this tree system. You see webs, white, sort of hanging on the edge of your peripheral vision. They appear old, sort of ripped and torn, hanging from the ceiling and the walls. You catch a few times small spiders scurrying across the dirt floor. A couple of times a larger one might scurry across your boot, getting out of the way of your path. Bretta, please give me an investigation check as you move into this cavern. You continue moving through this cavern. Hairs on the back of your neck kind of stand up. You all get a sense of closeness here. Everything feels very closed in and claustrophobic as you move through, but you can see a pinpoint of light ahead of you where this cavern opens back up into Mirkwood. As you move through, you hear a scurrying behind you. Off to the side, off to the left. It's hard to tell what direction it's coming from, but you definitely all hear it. You see the shadows on either side of you start to shift and move. You see the webs waver as a breeze catches them. Something is in here with you. Something hungry. What do the four of you do?
I'm going to get my sword out, get my shield ready, and remain very alert as we move on.
Yeah, with kind of a practiced motion, the shield comes forward and the hammer goes to hand again.
Elidor just lets out this like hiss through clenched teeth as he kind of crouches and half draws an arrow on his short bow, looking around, trying to pinpoint where the threat is.
Adjavar likewise is crouched, also with a short bow, looking around all directions frantically. He's not fond of spiders, even more so than orcs.
Elidar and Adjavar, you both see it first. Something approaching from the rear behind you. By the time you realize that it's been stalking you, it's upon you. You see it sort of climb out of the darkness alongside a wall. You see its legs first, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 legs. You see multiple eyes sort of catch the gleam of the silvery moonlight coming through the roots. And you know that there is a gigantic spider lurking in the shadows behind you. Let's go ahead and roll initiative.
All right. Ooh. What is my initiative? 8.
Spider, once it realizes that it has the jump on you, scurries forward and would attack whoever is in the rear. Who would likely be taking up the rear in this instance? Or did you all kind of spread out as you realized that there was something in here?
I guess I would see that Elidor, because he has the low light vision of the elves, would probably be at the front, being able to point out any threats to the rest. But I would imagine also we would kind of scatter it. Maybe because this is not our first time venturing into Mirkwood, so we would kind of do like this rough kind of circle. Maybe, if everyone's cool with that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think that sounds pretty good. Sigmund, being the Oathsworn that he is, would go to where he thought he heard the sound, but obviously it's behind him because he did not hear correctly.
Cool. So I'll roll a d4 to pick, since you guys essentially sort of circle the wagons here, and it's going to come after Adjavar first. So this thing scurries forward. Of course, the guy who hates spiders.
That's right.
This thing scurries forward, and it sort of stops short of your position, Adjavar. It's sort of hulking over you. This thing is fairly large even for a Mirkwood spider. You guys have caught glimpses of Mirkwood spiders before, maybe even faced them down in combat, and they're about the size of small ponies, but this one is a little bit bigger than that. It's older. You can see its eyes, a few of them sort of white with blindness. You see the hairs on its legs are graying, sort of silvery. This is a very old, very ancient Mirkwood spider. It stops short of your position, rears back. You see its thorax kind of come forward, and it launches this great glob of sticky web right at you. It's sort of almost like a net gun. It sort of just opens up in front of you. I'll need a dex save from you to avoid being restrained by it.
That's a 4.
So as the web wraps itself around you, you fall to the floor, your limbs locked to your sides. You are now restrained. You can use a strength check on your turn to try and free yourself, or someone else can use an action to cut you free. That was the spider's turn. Sigmund, you're up. You've just seen your friend just get wrapped up in this web and drop to the floor.
Yeah, and it's kind of this practice maneuver. He knows that once the spider is sprayed, there's a few moments where this opening happens, where there's a clean shot at the spider, and Sigmund just charges forward, hammer first, and just smashes Emberling into this creature. It's a 24.
Yeah, that definitely hits.
And that is 7 points of bludgeoning damage.
Great.
And he's going to follow through with his great shield, bashing the spider as well. That'll be 17.
Definitely hits.
For 9 points.
Okay, great. Okay. That was Sigmund. Adrivar, you're up.
I still have control of my arms, right?
Yeah, barely.
Just
they're
barely.
they're sort of like you can get them up, but they're sort of almost pinned to your sides.
Okay. In that case, I think Adrivar would have been so afraid here, especially with the extra size of the spider, that he actually drops his bow as his arms are sort of stuck to his side, and he's just kind of shaking. But he will be attempting, with a roll of 1, to not break free of this spider goo.
Yeah, you strain against it, and it's almost like the more you strain, the tighter it gets. You push against the web, and it just snaps your arms back to your sides. The spider sort of is almost standing over you at this point because it sort of stepped over you to engage with Sigmund, who is swinging his weapons at it. Okay, Elidor, you're up.
Elidor, seeing the plight that Adrivar is in, he has an arrow ready to shoot, but seeing that, he slacks the arrow, holding it on the bow with his finger, and he sprints into action to try to pull Adrivar free of the spider. So I'd like to pull the spider away from him, and I guess preparing for my next action. I don't know if I can get it done this turn or not, is pull out a small knife that he carries and try to cut him free.
Yeah, if you use your entire action, I'll say that you can move up and you sort of pull him away from the spider, and you use your knife to sort of work your way down the webs and cut him free.
So Elidor would say, when he sees Adrivar starting to panic, he would say, "Calm yourself. I do not want to cut you with the knife." And he would kind of, and probably say it with the most calm voice he could, but there's probably just an edge of fear in it because he's never seen a spider this big before, as he's cutting these webs free. And that'll be his turn.
Great. Go ahead and take a point of inspiration for helping him out. Okay, Bretta, you're up.
Bretta, seeing that Elidor's already helped Adrivar, seeing that spider, she gets enraged. She's so mad. That thing has attacked them. It snuck up. She just rushes in with her sword and her shield. As she starts to move, and as this anger and fury comes up in her, it's almost like you're seeing a bear. She's a daughter of Bjorn. It's just like, just almost this bear-like form. You're not even sure if it's a woman or a bear. And she just races in there and attacks, and critical hit. 20.
Beautiful. Go ahead and roll for damage and double
No,
it.
I'm just like, all right. Okay, that was 7 of E4. Oh, do I double the, yeah.
Yeah, so just roll
10.
the dice, add your modifiers, and then double it.
Okay, so that's 10 double. That's 20 points of damage. So she
Beautiful.
just comes up in this furious thing, and she just goes in there with her long sword, or perhaps it's her claws. It's hard to say.
Yeah, and when you slash at this thing, you actually you hew one of its legs off. It just flies off, and this black ichor spews from the stump as you hack through the carapace of this spider. It sort of stumbles back and screeches as you wound it. Okay, it is now the spider's turn. It turns on you, Bretta, enraged at losing a limb, and it's going to attempt to bite you. It lunges forward, its mandibles clicking. But you manage to bring up your shield just in time. You feel the mandibles clicking against the shield. They might even puncture through the wood at one point, but you manage to hold off the spider's assault with your shield. That brings us back around to Sigmund.
Button helps. Sigmund, seeing his friends kind of rallying to his side, especially that heavy hit from Bretta, he readjusts his grip on the hammer, and with just kind of this quick twist, he brings himself around to bear on. You said that spider is still up or down?
It's still up. It's sort of stumbling a little bit because it's lost one of its legs, but it's still upright for now.
Okay. He'll take a swing with the hammer at it. That will be a 15.
Just enough to hit.
Okay. And that will be 9 points of bludgeoning damage. And as a bonus action, as a shield or as a 2-weapon fighter, I'm going to forsake my second action or my bonus action to attack. So if anybody else attacks the spider, they're going to get advantage on that hit.
Okay, awesome. That's great. Yeah, you crack into its carapace. More black ichor sort of spews out from this spider. You guys are sort of surrounding it at this point. Adrivar, you are free, and it is your turn.
Yeah, so Adrivar is sort of stuck in this, and he, sort of out of the corner of his eye, now believes there's also this mother bear in here, and this ichor starts coming out, and he thinks that this spider is coming after him again. And but the words of Elidor almost have like this face slap kind of effect on him, and he's able to calm himself down. He's just getting cut out of this, and he'd like to pick up his short bow and fire at this thing while his friends are surrounding it. With a natural 1.
You got to get yourself some new dice, man.
Game science, they're just brutal tonight.
They're too random.
Yes.
All right. Elidor, you are up.
Perfect. Seeing that Adrivar is up and no worse for wear, but still can't shoot that bow that he carries, Elidor, if you let me do this. So what Elidor would do is, taking advantage of Bretta and Sigmund getting the attention of the spider, he tries to leap onto the back of its carapace. And I believe I would have disadvantage as I try to shoot an arrow down into it because I'm in melee with it. But I'm still going to do that because this just seems really cool.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. It seems cool, so you should do it.
Yeah, so I'm going to do it.
Okay, go for it.
All right, so that's a 4 plus. Probably going to miss. That is 11.
Yeah, not quite. You get up there and you draw back on your bow and fire, and the arrow just kind of deflects off this thing's, kind of chitness sort of back. But you are on top of the spider, so.
Nice. Yeah,
that's either a good thing or a bad thing, depending on how you look at it.
It shifts at the last second, and Elidor's just about to lose his balance as he's shooting, and that's and that's why he catches his balance, but the arrow goes off. Nice.
Very cool. Okay, that was Elidor. So, Bretta, you're up.
Freda, in her continued state of anger at this creature for attacking them, is going to attack it again. And let's see. That'll be a total of 19.
Definitely hits.
Okay, and she does it as she slices her sword, or perhaps claws, in this. You can't tell if she's a bear or human, but she's moving way faster and way stronger than she did when she was not in this angered state. And she does 10 points worth of damage.
10 points. Okay. Go ahead and describe how you vanquish this massive spider.
Well, she just comes right up almost underneath it, and kind of lifts up with her shoulder and slashes with her sword and just cuts a big hole in the carapace, kind of doing more damage to the spot she'd hit the first time. And the whole, it kind of falls in half, and ichor and goo come out of it, and it's a really nasty mess.
Yeah, the spider sort of falls on top of you as you stab upward, and you're sort of covered in the innards of this thing as you crack it open like a lobster. It screeches as it falls, rolls onto its back. It's thrashing around. It's kicking with its legs, and rocks and dust are falling from the ceiling. For a second, you guys are afraid that it might collapse the entire cavern around you in its death throes, but eventually it comes to a stop and lays still, and its legs curl up with a creak as it lays dead on the floor of the cavern. I need you all to give me a wisdom saving throw, please.
All right, yeah, well, Brett is going to kind of shiver, and as you watch her, she kind of starts to look like herself again.
So anyone who got under 15, go ahead and get 2 points of shadow. Anyone who got over, go ahead and get 1 point of shadow. You have just faced an ancient creature, an agent of shadow, something roosting here in the Mirkwood. And this place that you're in, this cavern, the darkness is not just with the light. There is a palpable shadow evident here where you have walked. Who knows what happened here, if it was the site of some great battle or the resting place of some great ancient evil. But you all just get the overwhelming sense that you need to make for that light at the end of the cavern as fast as you can. So here's a quick point, Chris, specifically. I read in the book, it is not your modifier, it's your total score. You're not miserable until you exceed your total wisdom score.
Oh, okay. That makes Shadow much less terrifying.
Yes, it does.
more manageable. I thought it felt really steep when we did Marquise's game.
Yes, I thought so too. And so that's why I looked it up just to make sure, and it is your wisdom score. So the shadow accumulates very quickly in this game, and it's hard to get rid of it. And so if you're on a long journey, it's easy to get miserable, but it's still manageable at least. Because miserable really is just debilitating. It makes you so bad at everything. So,
especially if you're the face of the party.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah, because you automatically fail all the charisma checks. That's right. So did the four of you sort of beeline out of here?
Yeah, so Elidor would quickly, when he sees that no one is suffering any major hurt, he would say, "Quickly, follow me." And he would just start going, assuming that they're following him. Maybe about 10 or 15 feet up, he would maybe look over his shoulder just to make sure. But those first 10 or 15 feet, he goes without even checking.
And I feel like Advar would almost be passing you up.
And Brett and Sigmund, do you follow?
Yes, Brett is pretty shook up by this whole thing with the spider. that's a scary thing. And although she went into that angry state and went after it, now that it's all done, she's like, oh, wow, what did we just do? What happened here? And she wants out of there, but she's paying attention, but she's moving.
Yeah, Sigmund will kind of linger for a moment, and he just flourishes the hammer for a moment while everybody else starts moving away, just waiting to see if another one comes out, because these things are hardly by themselves usually. After a few moments, he kind of shakes his head, realizing that this is probably going to be the only one that he's going to have to deal with at the moment. He'll follow behind the others, just maybe 30 seconds or so behind them.
Great. So the four of you exit this cavern. On your way out, you kind of catch glimpses of other shapes sort of in the darkness, moving, shifting, watching you. You see eyes gleaming through the curtains of these webs, but they almost shy away from you as you're sort of charging through, because clearly you've vanquished something very important to these creatures, and they now rightfully fear you. And so you manage to leave the cavern without being harassed any further by these spiders. And you break out into Mirkwood again. And even though Mirkwood itself is dark and oppressive and the air is close and stifling, you feel as though you can take a deep breath, and a weight that was weighing you down that you weren't even aware of leaves you as you leave this place, this blighted land, this place of shadow.
Immediately, there's a visible change in Elidor as they clear this cavern. Even though there's not much light there, he welcomes it. He looks back. Maybe he kind of shakes his head disapprovingly when he sees Sigmund lagging behind, knowing that actions like this will oftentimes separate groups and leaving many lost, never to be found again. And he probably would mention that at some later point as they're journeying along, just as, not as any kind of reprimand, but just cautionary, because he sees Bretta and Sigmund as great fighters of shadow. So he definitely appreciates that in them.
Yeah, and when he brings that up, Bretta's like, yes, that's very good. You've got to stay together in Mirkwood. Who knows what happens if we get split up and spread out too much.
Great. We're actually going to take a quick break now and do player introductions, and then do a quick break and come back and finish out the session. So if you guys want to introduce yourselves and briefly introduce your characters, even though we've gotten to know them a little bit over the course of the first hour of the game, that would be great. We'll start from my left to right with Ben.
Hey, Ben. I've been around the online community for 2 or 3 years now. Nothing really to promote. I'm playing Adrivar, who is a man of the north, far away and not with his brethren. He is a healer who has been spending some time in Mirkwood, learning from the elves.
Great. Go ahead, Carol.
I'm Carol, obviously. I'm playing Bretta. She's a Bjorning, and she's an older woman. She's lost her family in the War of Five Armies, and gone back to the woods to fight and protect people, because that's all there is really left for her to do at this point. Make some use out of what's left of her life. So that's what she's doing.
Awesome. Chris, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Chris with Drop Dice and a Point of Inspiration. Tonight I am playing Sigmund, the Oathsworn, who is attempting to be a hero of Middle-earth. As terrible of a fate as that is, he has sworn to rid Mirkwood of agents of shadow, which will probably cost him his life in the end.
Great. All right, Lionel.
I'm playing Elidor, who is an elf of Mirkwood. He's a wanderer, and he is a guide and Hunter of Shadow.
Perfect. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, guys. I do want to say really quick that this game was organized as part of something called the AbTab Challenge, which is something that was going around in the Absolute Tabletop group. And it's basically running a game for people that you've never run a game before. So even though I've played with a couple of these people before, I've never run games for these people before. So this is it's a chance to make an effort to get out there and game with some people you've never gamed with before, run a game for people that you've never gamed with before, and just have fun, get some new experiences, meet some new people. So yeah, thanks for joining me, guys, and we will be right back.
So there was some conversation inside chat about how I use XSplit for multiple people. This is just kind of an example of my layout. If you guys can see me, I'm not sure if Matt clicked himself or not. But basically, I put everybody on the same thing since we were kind of talking about XSplit a minute ago. And with that, I'm going to take my break too.
Oh my God, did Dad open the door? Oh my God, oh my God. Have you made it through your bag of popcorn yet? Almost? Just say you could. I'll get you more. I just want this popcorn instead of the other happy popcorn. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it gets that spot. Here you go, little kitty. You can try it.
You know I love you, right?
Yeah.
If I wouldn't be single about that.
We were talking about in chat how Italian curse words sound so pretty. And I had to fight the urge to be like, you know what my favorite phrase is?
A beautiful whore. You can't tell them you used to call me that, man. You cannot say that shit. That's embarrassing.
All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in tonight. This has been fun. Real quick, I am going to be running a game of Star Wars West End Games D6 system for some friends of mine, and that is happening. Oh God, I actually have to open my calendar and check. When is that happening? I can't remember. Hang on. I think it's the 31st. So next Tuesday, I'm going to be running Star Wars West End Games D6, old system, but it's one that I grew up playing. So I'm really excited to be running that game. And that's going to be set during the Galactic Civil War. The players are going to be playing Rebel special operatives, doing some cool sort of very like military oriented missions. So not very Jedi and not very sort of smugglers and stuff like that. It's going to be very like military sort of espionage sort of stuff. So that should be pretty cool. I'm looking forward to running that.
And didn't that game sort of give you your channel name too?
It did, yeah, because that's part of that game is you just roll just heaps of D6s. I mean, a first level character can easily have 5d6 or 6d6 in a skill if they want to max it out, and it only goes up from there. And in fact, there's a table in the book for if you have a character that is just rolling ridiculous amounts of dice, instead of having to add up all the dice, they have like averages for like if you're rolling 30d6, here's the average, like, you know, and you use those numbers instead of actually rolling all of those dice. But that was something that really was fun as a kid, because I was like 10, 11 years old when I was playing this for the first time. It's like rolling, you know, just all of these dice to do things and seeing all of these numbers come up was fun. It was exciting. So I'm excited to run it. It's like I love pretty much every edition of the Star Wars role-playing game. Like I don't have a super strong preference for any of them. I love the Fantasy Flight games. I was a huge fan of Saga Edition from Wizards of the Coast, and I love D6 as well. So
Saga is really what they should have done with 4th edition instead of what it became.
Yeah, and that's why I was excited about 4th edition, because I played the hell out of Saga Edition and was like, man, if this is what 4th edition is going to be like, that's perfect. Because it was like 3rd edition, but kind of slimmed down, streamlined a little bit. The skills made a lot more sense and stuff. And then 4th edition came out, and it was nothing like Saga Edition. Like, it was so different.
The last time I played, I got to be an Imperial Knight who basically had a plant fall on him and defeat a couple Sith in the building on his way to his ultimate doom.
That's amazing.
Like session 3, because all the players in the group did a really terrible thing, and the only way that we were getting out of it was somebody who was getting sacrificed.
That's the best way to go, though, man. All right, everybody back, it looks like. You guys ready to continue your journey through Middle-earth?
Oh, yeah.
So, you make camp for the night. The night passes uneventfully. You wake the next morning and set out. You walk for maybe another day, continuing to follow this path, these tracks. And the further you get into Mirkwood, the deeper you get into Mirkwood, the harder it is to follow this path. And a few times you lose your way. A few times you go off the path and have to find your way back, or you come across a sheer cliff much too high to climb down, and you have to work your way around. But you all just continue. You all push on, and you all manage to walk for another day. On the evening of that second day, Elidor, you're sort of taking up the front, taking point, and you see another set of tracks sort of crossing over the path that you're following. It sort of stops you up for a minute. you take a moment and you try and identify those tracks. Go ahead and give me a survival check if you would. All DCs, by the way, are now up to 17. You guys are in daunting territory now.
Well, the good thing is, when I'm in an region that I know, I get to reduce the DC by 2, which it gives it a 15.
Perfect.
And I just happen to roll adjusted.
Perfect. So you quickly identify the tracks as deer tracks, and they're fairly fresh. It's dark in here in Mirkwood. It's cold, and y'all don't have a lot of fresh food. A hot meal, some fresh meat would really raise the spirits of the party. And it looks like there's a deer not too far away. What would you like to do, Elidor?
Elidor turns to the others and he signals them to stop. He would quickly tell them, whoever would be closest to him, he would whisper to him, "I see deer markings across this path. Stay in. I will go in." Can I tell about how long ago it might have passed?
Maybe an hour at most.
I believe a warm meal is something we all would need. Something we would raise our spirits. And he would probably not really wait for anyone to say yay or nay, and he would head off on the path.
And Brett is thinking, no, don't go alone. That's not a good idea. But not really knowing what else to do, I guess she's going to wait for him.
Elidor, you follow the deer path, moving up along the west. You track the deer for maybe about 30 minutes before you spot it. You almost run right into it as you come along the other side of this tree. And you see it standing there in this clearing, sort of nibbling at some of the grass and shrubs. As you approach, I'd like you to give me a stealth roll, please. As you come around the tree, even with your nimble elf steps, you feel something crunch underneath you as you step on a piece of brittle wood underneath some leaves. The deer, it's a doe, it immediately takes its head upright, looks in both directions, and starts to bolt. Give me an attack roll at disadvantage if you'd like to try and nab it.
Oh yeah, Elidor would definitely just quickly and try to hit it. At disadvantage. Oh, so that's not bad. 18?
18, yeah, definitely. You nail it with an arrow and bring it down. Clean kill. You get it right in the neck and it goes down and dies shortly thereafter, taking its last few breaths as it falls into the bushes. You have brought down a good-sized doe for dinner tonight.
So Elidor would immediately just go right to work, having done this countless other times, gutting it, and he would return shortly after with it spread, laying across his shoulders.
The three of you see Elidor return with this killed and cleaned doe, just beautiful animal, and the four of you sort of set up camp and get the loin and everything cooking and gather what you can to make a bit of a feast out of it. As you all are sitting and enjoying this feast, you can swap stories, smoke pipe weed, drink some ale, and make an effort to find hope and find a glimmer of light here in the darkest portions of Mirkwood. As you all sit and speak to each other, you can restore one shadow, losing one shadow point apiece. And you are, of course, free to speak to one another as you enjoy this feast.
Is anyone actually injured? I don't think so.
I think everyone's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, all set.
Yes, Bretta sits around the fire, looks at her comrades, and starts to talk about being at home and growing her garden, which she totally enjoys. She loves her garden. Talks about the flowers and the bees and the good food that she grows there, which may or may not be boring to everyone else, but it makes her very peaceful and calm. She hopes that they can take some advantage from that too.
Adrivar would definitely be somewhere near the fire and be smoking some pipe weed that he brought along. And he seems to have maybe drawn within a little bit. Just not very talkative.
I think surprisingly, Sigmund actually joins the conversation about gardening, living as one of the men of the lake. He remembers his mother and doing it as a child, tending to a small herb garden that they had hanging in pots out the windows of his house, taking good soil from the lake shores and bringing it back to create the actual herb garden. Most of his knowledge is limited to just understanding how to raise a plant in a small pot, but he seems to be actively listening more when you start discussing like how you arranged your rows and things like that with how your plants went.
Yes, because you've got to arrange them to get the maximum amount of sunlight. And we go in the forest and collect leaf mold and use that to fertilize. We don't have like lake soil like you would. So she goes on about that.
Yeah, and you're sitting in a pile of leaf mold. The whole Mirkwood is just leaf mold after just tons of it.
As far as the eye can see.
It's not very far in Mirkwood. Yeah, she picks up a handful. So, see, this is really good for your plants.
What about you, Eladar? What are you doing as you enjoy this feast?
So Elador just listens to the other stories. He's not very talkative. He goes about cutting up more of the meat, maybe laying it across spits by the fire to dry it so that they might carry it with them in the morning when they set out again. And maybe start scraping the hide, thinking that that's something he would roll and carry with him to put to use later on. But he would just listen to the story. Maybe occasionally he would add something to it. I mean, Mirkwood is his home, so he would speak to, I mean, though touched by shadow, he would mention some of the more, like around the kingdom, the elf kingdom, speak of the halls. But it would be short and not really for long.
Yeah, the elf halls here in Mirkwood are somehow made even more beautiful by the fact that they're surrounded by so much shadow, because there's sort of these, these glimmering beacons, these enclaves in the middle of what is otherwise just sort of impenetrable darkness, and yet the elves persist and have persisted for millennia here under the growing darkness. So the four of you enjoy this meal together, and you feel yourself renewed, and though the moisture in this place was starting to seep into your bones and the cold was starting to get to you, you feel renewed vigor, you feel renewed strength, and the next day you break camp and continue on with even more haste than you had before. You feel as though maybe you will accomplish this task and make it out to tell the tale. The four of you continue on this path, and you see in front of you a break in the canopy. The first pure, unfiltered sunlight that you've seen in a few days. And you see on the horizon, rising up above the dense canopy of Mirkwood, the mountains of Mirkwood, a cluster of jagged peaks that rise above the forest. Truly, this is one of the more wondrous sights of Middle-earth, and not something that many people see, as they're sort of just smack dab in the middle of this tall, dense, very inhospitable forest. I'd like you all to give me a wisdom check, if you would. DC 17. Anyone who makes the check, you see this sunlight and you see the mountains ahead, and you know that you're getting close to your quarry, and you receive a point of inspiration. Anyone who failed just sees the crags, the ugly face of this mountain. They see how high it is, and they see how far away it is. And you realize just how deep in this forest you are. And it's almost like the sunlight peeking through these trees, it's almost mocking you, because you can't stop and bask in it. You can't let it fall on your face. And you know that if you continue on, it'll probably be days longer still until you see the sun again. And you receive a point of shadow as hopelessness again begins to set in. If you failed by more than 5, you also gain a point of exhaustion.
So Elidor, seeing these mountains break through the canopy, he would turn to the others and say, "Are they not beautiful? Did I not talk about some of the wonders of Mirkwood?" And he would smile at them and maybe seeing a touch of shadow around the two of them, say, "Lift your hearts. The end is close." And he would turn and start to move, kind of picking his way to the mountains, following the path.
And Bretta would just look at him and look at the mountains and think, "Oh, it's so hopeless. They're so big and dangerous." And she's just very tired and worn down. She's maybe more shook by that spider the day before than she realized. She can't hardly bring herself to even bring herself to even look up at them.
Sigmund, he just looks tired. Like this journey has aged him. He's in his late 30s, which is pretty old for a man of the lake traveling land, but it's the first time in a while that he's really shown his age. And he kind of rubs his face, grabs a swig of water, nods. All right, then. There's no need standing around. Let's keep going.
The 4 of you continue on your path, whether reinvigorated by the sight that you've witnessed or brought down by it. You continue nonetheless, because truly you have no other option at this point. The sunlight falls away behind you, and you're again dropped into the darkness of the Mirkwood. You come to a small clearing ringed by tall, gnarled trees with moss cascading down the branches. It's eerily quiet as you break through into this clearing. And Elidor, as you move into the clearing, you realize that you've lost the path. The tracks, they're gone, or at least you can't see them anymore. For the first time, you feel truly truly lost. Sigmund, I'd like you to give me a perception check, please. Sigmund, as the four of you move into this sort of clearing, you spot something moving in the trees. At first, you're not sure if it was just the moss moving in the slight breeze that blows through. But as you take a moment to look, being the lookout of the group, you spot shapes moving up above, high above.
Sigmund will kind of take one hand back and just rest it on the bottom grip, on the bottom of the grip of the hammer, right behind his back. But he doesn't actually pull it off just yet. He looks to the group. Elidor, I seem to recall your people patrol these woods. When was last time that that they walked this road?
Elidor seems like distracted for a moment. You notice that he stopped. He pulled up short as he was following the path, and hearing your words kind of maybe it brings him back, and he's like, "Yeah, seldom do we go this far south, though. Why? Do you see something?" And maybe now he pulls his eyes up from the path because he's been kind of just searching the rocks and the underbrush, trying to find sign of the orcs passing, and he would just look.
Yeah, and kind of without a verbal response, Elidor would hear that familiar snapping sound of the warhammer being drawn. And he can see that Sigmund is now scanning up into the trees, hearing something from that direction.
So Elidor would follow, would track your where you're looking, and would look there himself.
When you look up, Elidor, you too see something moving in the trees up above you. And you, with your keen elf senses, you hear something scraping against the branches up above as if things are moving in the canopies 40, 50 feet above you. Bretta, Adrivar, what are you two doing as you see Elidor and Sigmund sort of take note up in the trees?
Adrivar takes note, sort of as that cracking is heard, and doesn't move, but has the short bow out rather quickly. Just whispers to himself, "Better not be spiders."
Bretta, seeing that other people were preparing, maybe hearing noises, maybe not, but just, paying attention to her comrades too. Here's Adrifar whisper and kind of smiles. She goes, "It's all right. We'll protect you." And she gets out her sword and her shield, and she starts looking around carefully and kind of sticks close to Adrivar just in case he needs something.
As the four of you sort of take up positions in this clearing, again, doing that sort of trained circling around each other, making sure that all points are covered, you hear a laugh kind of split the silence.
Usually we have to go out and hunt for food. It's not often it walks right into the clearing.
And you hear more laughs kind of all around you, and you realize that they're all in the trees.
So what'll it be then? A fight? Or you gonna lay down your weapons?
Why would we lay our weapons down? What good would that do?
Quick death. If you fight, I can't promise as much.
Sigmund, with kind of a stiffening, brings the shield around, takes the hammer and just smashes the shield and hammer together 3 times.
So be it. That's enough answer for me. We'll make a sport of it. Get 'em, boys.
Let's go ahead and roll for initiative.
That's what I get for running my mouth over here.
Going at the end isn't always bad, I don't think.
No,
sometimes.
not at all.
Kind of get the lay of the land. You can kind of decide what you want to do.
Yeah, I get a full view of the tactical scene.
Right.
So Elidor, you, with your insight roll there, you're not able to discern exactly where they are, but you know that they have the tactical advantage right now being so high up. But if they start shooting, they're going to make their positions known, and it's going to be easy pickings for you with your bow. So I'll say that with that insight check, though it wasn't a success, you can easily find cover if you need to on your turn.
Perfect.
And having said that, it's actually your turn first.
All right. So that's what Elidor does. He immediately just leaps into action. Having spotted an area where he could get some cover, he immediately bolts for that, knowing that having fought with his companions several times against the shadow, knowing that they know what they're doing. These are veterans. They're not, fresh off the training grounds. So he runs to get that vantage point. And what he would do is he would turn in the general direction of where the voices were coming and the movement was in the trees. And he would wait for one of these attackers to show themselves. And so I would have hold an action to fire his bow.
Great. You got it. Okay. Adrivar, you're up.
So Adrivar, hearing what's going on, would have rushed, probably still trying to keep that almost circle formation to spread out at least. Would also try to move to just right next to a tree, and maybe he's right under one. He can't tell, but at least he'll have some protection. And he's also holding an action, so if he even just can tell the direction an arrow comes from, he'll take a shot.
Great. Okay, Beretta, what about you?
Bretta doesn't have a whole lot she can do against enemies up on tops of trees, but she's going to go look for cover and maybe see, probably kind of stick somewhat close to Adrivar in case he could use some help, in case somebody, in case somebody attacks him. But then she gets this great idea and she thinks, I can climb. And she's going to start up the tree, probably next to the one that Adrivar's in, just to see if she can get some sort of advantage on the got whoever's up in that tree.
All right, so you're going to attempt to climb?
Yes.
Okay, give me an athletics check, please.
Oh. Unfortunately, Brenna is.
Can we give him inspiration?
Yeah, you can
I'd like
pass
to
around
give her-
inspiration.
Yeah, I'd like to pass her one of the inspirations I have.
Great. So go ahead and
Okay.
roll with advantage, Carol.
Well, no, I rolled that one with disadvantage because I'm exhausted.
Oh, that's right.
Otherwise, I would have been fine.
So with inspiration, you would take the higher result of those two, since
Okay.
you would basically be rolling normally.
Right. So that would end up being 18.
18? Okay. So you managed to clamber up the first stretch of this tree. I'm going to say, just based on where you can tell that they're at, it's going to take you 2 successes on a climb check to be able to get up to striking range of these guys, but you're halfway there about. So what does that look like, you clambering up this tree?
Well, given that I'm 6 feet tall and a couple 100 pounds, she's a very solid, strong, large woman. But she does, even with her age, there's a certain grace to her when she comes under fire and she needs to do something. And so she's reaching up almost like a bear would reach up and kind of grabbing hold of even the bark and the branches and just kind of smoothly working her way up this tree.
Awesome. All right. From the canopies come arrows, lots of arrows. As these arrows start firing, the two of you with readied actions clearly make out the positions of at least a few of these enemies. And so Elidor and Adrivar, you both have readied actions. Elidor, you can go first.
Nat 20. I love it.
Beautiful. Awesome. Go ahead and give me some damage.
The damage, not so good. 12 all up.
12 all up? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you draw back, fire, and you hear the arrow connect solidly, and then you see tumbling from the tree a goblin. Yeah, just crumbling into the clearing below, just a mass of flesh as it collapses on the ground with an arrow sticking straight out of its throat. All right, Adrivar, you have a ready to action as well.
That is a 16.
16 does hit.
For 5.
5 damage, okay. You draw back, fire, another goblin topples from the canopy, crumbling into the clearing below. Okay, Sigmund, you're up. It's raining goblins.
It's a good day. Yeah, I'm not climbing anything in my armor, so I'm just gonna do cleanup duty and go after one of these goblins that falls relatively close.
Absolutely.
And that's gonna be a 27.
Yeah, you strike the one that that Adrivar hit with an arrow.
Okay. And that is 13 points of damage, bludgeoning from the warhammer, and I will correct myself this time and give you what my actual 2-weapon fighting thing does, which is to say that I'm giving up my offhand attack to impose disadvantage on anyone who attacks me on their attack roll.
Gotcha.
Or on the next opponent who attacks me.
Okay, great. Yeah. So you move up to this goblin who's like kind of starting to right itself from having toppled out of the tree, and you just come down and smash its head in with your attack. That brings us back up to the top with Elidor.
Elidor just very gracefully draws another arrow and puts it on his bow. Seeing Bretta starting to climb the tree, he changes tactics a bit, and he's actually watching to kind of provide cover. So I'm going to have a ready to action. If anyone kind of tries to shoot Bretta, he's going to try to protect her.
Okay, cool. Adrivar.
Adrivar also has another arrow knocked, and he is sort of swiveling point to point, looking at where Bretta is, and sort of maybe the sort of four corners of the area, and just looking for any movement. And so I'll hold an action again, assuming I can't see anything right now.
Yeah. Okay, great. Bretta, if you're going to continue climbing, give me another athletics check, please. DC 17.
Spread is still headed up the tree. I can tell you right off, Bretta failed that.
You're clambering up the tree.
Oh, no. I'll give you my last inspiration.
No,
This is it.
don't even bother.
No.
I would have failed it with it's bad. It's not a crit failure though.
You're clambering up the tree, and you grab onto a piece of bark that comes loose, and you find yourself hanging with one arm sort of hanging from this tree. The goblins start taking shots at you. So Elidor and Adrivar, you can go ahead and roll your attacks while I'm rolling the goblins' attacks, since you readied your actions. But they're going to be shooting at Bretta, as she is a pretty prominent target at this point, climbing up the tree. Okay, Bretta, you're going to get hit with 2 gnarled goblin arrows for a total of 11 piercing damage.
Bretta growls in pain, just grabs on tighter.
And Elidor, you draw back on your bow and drop another goblin out of these trees. You're just firing anything that moves. Coming down a couple of these trunks, you see 2 pony-sized spiders just chitter down these trees. But to your horror, you see that these spiders are not alone. They're being ridden by goblins. The goblins are sort of hanging on in these makeshift leather saddles, riding these spiders. And as they come down, they draw back on these crooked short bows and start throwing arrows in Sigmund's direction. Sigmund, one hits you for 5 piercing damage, sinking into your shoulder. You just feel the... Oh, disadvantage, right. Let me roll again. Never mind, that's a 3. You see one coming at you, and you just sidestep, just goes right.
I was going to say, it's probably like he moves the shield in time to take the arrow.
Yeah, you just catch it right in the shield. And these spiders with goblins on their backs sort of touch down in the clearing and start kind of charging towards you, Sigmund. So it is now your turn.
Perfect. Seeing them coming, Sigmund is going to employ the classic tactic of take out the mount, forget about the rider. So he's just going to barrel into this spider, intending to do as much harm as possible. The hammer comes across in this wide arcing swing, kind of almost an uppercut, and just connects with the spider underneath the jaw. That was a critical for 14 points of bludgeoning damage. And then he's going to follow up with the shield, which would be another bash at 24. And 5 more points of bludgeoning. And then, you know what? I'll take my action surge.
Why not?
Another hammer blow for 19 to hit and 5 points of bludgeoning. Shield blow, 18 to hit and 7 points of damage.
Yeah, you obliterate this spider. Like you hammer into it. Go ahead and describe to me how you kill it.
Yeah, it's not pretty. The first swing is this uppercut, and then Sigmund just takes the shield, and it's kind of this practice strike, like if you were to see an unarmed fighter swing an elbow. He's doing that same maneuver, but with a great shield, and it just smacks the spider across the side. As the spider kind of gets up to right itself, he brings the hammer down and then does a final kind of downward strike with the shield. And it's enough that it actually lurches the goblin free of the saddle, who just kind of tumbles out from the spider that he was once mounted on. And seeing that the goblin was actually not properly mounted, he was just kind of leather lashed into this thing. The leather strapping has broke underneath the blows.
Yeah, and the goblin just comes toppling off of this spider as it curls up and dies. Oh, I lost my initiative. There it is. Elidor, you are up. So you see that there are more shapes moving up ahead, firing at Bretta, firing down on Sigmund, but the most pressing threat is probably the two spider riders that have dropped down into the clearing.
Okay, so thinking quickly, Elidor sees that Sigmund, more likely than not, has things under control over there, but he does yell to Adavar, Adavar, help Sigmund! And he would kind of move just a little bit to get a better vantage point to help. He just wants to try to pin down any of the goblins that are up there, maybe get them to fire at him rather than shooting at Bretta as she continues to climb up this tree.
Okay, yeah, great. Go ahead and give me an attack roll, and if you want to try and like draw attention to yourself, you can also give me some sort of charisma-based check, whatever skill you want to use that you can sort of make work.
I guess I would just go with intimidation. He would let me see. Elidor would just yell, "Foul creatures of shadow, cowards hiding in the bushes, come out and face me." So just try to taunt them to maybe come out so they can fire at me, so that that'll distract them from Bretta. So
cool, perfect.
Probably not that great. So I got a 5.
5 on the intimidation. Yeah, not so much.
But I will just.
Bretta still looks like a pretty enticing target.
Right. So so I'll just fire into the canopy. So I imagine I'll just make that at disadvantage because I can't.
Yeah, because they have in the canopy instead of popping out, they have some half cover. So.
Yeah, so that's going to be a 6 with 7, so that's a 13.
13, just enough to hit one of the goblins.
Sweet. And that's 9 points of piercing damage.
Cool. Yet another goblin drops out of the trees, crumbling in a heap below. Okay, Adravar, you are up.
All right. Adravar kind of sighs for a moment and just thinks, so I should not have despaired. And instead of reeling back from these spiders this time, he drops the short bow and removes this staff off of his back. And he is running towards this goblin almost sort of as it's falling off of the spider. That is a 13 to hit the goblin.
That is just enough, yeah.
And 8 bludgeoning damage.
Okay, great. That is just enough to kill that goblin as well. Go ahead and describe that.
So I imagine he's running in with his staff as all of this is happening, and the goblin sort of flies off the spider, and he catches the goblin in the neck with the staff, which causes the neck to crunch sickeningly, and he kind of spins almost around the staff and then falls to the ground.
Awesome. All right, Bretta, if you want to continue climbing, give me that athletics check.
All right. Well, Bretta, having been hit here, she's starting to get angry again. You know, and she's getting pissed off. And all of a sudden, you see her start to like speed up and gain energy as she starts to climb this tree. And let's see. Unfortunately, it's probably not going to be enough at 11.
Not quite. Again, you're climbing and arrows are thunking into the bark around you, and you're just sort of hanging there with your one arm, and you can't quite find the strength to bring up your other arm and pull yourself up. You're just so tired at this point, but you know you have to get up there if you can. All right. Bad guy's turn. More arrows coming at you, Bretta. Luckily, the goblins aren't the best shots, and they manage to miss you as you're climbing, even without that shield bonus to your AC. Adravar, 6 piercing damage as an arrow sinks into your shoulder. And And Sigmund, I'd like you to please give me a Constitution saving throw, if you would. So the remaining spider rears up, and you feel its mandible sink into your shoulder blade. You take 5 piercing damage, but you manage to fight off the poison that starts pumping into your veins. The goblin on the spider's back jabs forward with it draws out a hand axe and chops down. And gets you for 3 slashing, Sigmund.
Okay.
Okay. And then, let's see. All right, Elidor, you're in half cover, yeah? Is that correct? Okay. It's going to be, your AC will increase by 2 then. A javelin comes flying down from the canopy, and you see the javelin has a rope attached to it. And this javelin comes down, and it just sinks into your chest, just pokes right through your rib cage. And you feel just this horrifying sensation as you realize that the tip of this javelin has backwards barbs on it. And as it sinks in, you realize it's not going to come out. I need you to give me a strength saving throw, please. So as this javelin sinks into you, 5 piercing damage, by the way, from this, you feel it start to get yanked back by this rope. Something on the other end of this javelin is pulling on it. You manage to kind of grab it and stop yourself from being pulled out from cover, but there is something on the end of this rope trying to get you off the ground and pull you up into the trees. It is now Sigmund's turn.
And Sigmund will take to the goblin that's been cast aside on the ground, just with hammer blow and using his bonus action to gain a second wind. That will be 8 points of bludgeoning damage. And Sigmund's second wind, that tiredness that looked in his eyes, he just seems more invigorated from battle, and he just kind of lets out this primal roar as he swings the hammer across and just chin taps the goblin ever so slightly for 8 damage.
Awesome. The goblin sort of, its head snaps to one side and it kind of topples off the spider, but remains in a crouched position with its hand axe out. And really quickly, I'd like to pause combat to say, happy birthday, Nick Gurr. He's watching right now, and he's a fan. So happy birthday, Nick. Thank you for tuning in and watching. Appreciate you spending your birthday with us. There's so many other things you could be doing, and I appreciate you choosing to do this. So,
hey, Nick, when you blow on those candles, can you wish that we all don't die?
Yeah, wish for some good rolls for these guys.
Pray against the shadow for us.
All right. That brings us back around to Elidor. So, Elidor, you have a javelin in you with a rope attached to it. It is now your turn.
Lovely. Yes. So as Elidor is just intently watching and trying to protect Bretta as she's trying to slowly scaling up this tree, he's a second too late to see that javelin that comes at him, and it bites deeply into him. And then horror does set in as he recognizes this type of javelin and he knows what it does. He grips onto it, holding it, and you can feel it pulling against his flesh and tearing it. You can feel the blood running down his side. And instinctually he says, cut the rope, pull the javelin, yank him out of the trees. But instead he sees Bretta and he knows So I would like to use my turn to aid her by telling her, yelling to her footholds or handholds that she could find on this tree to help her climb up this tree, if at all possible. So I'd like to use my action to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. You don't even need to roll for it. I'll just say that you do that, and so she can have an advantage. That's really cool. Go ahead and take a point of inspiration. That's neat. So that brings us to Adrivar.
Edrivar, seeing what has just happened, rushes over to Elidor, and dropping his staff, he puts both hands on this rope and yanks just as hard as he can.
Awesome. Give me an athletics check, please.
That is a whopping 10.
If you'd like, you can take my inspiration and see if you get a better roll.
I will.
Lionel's just like inspiration for everybody.
It is the currency of the realm.
Yes. Yes. Inspiration pieces. That's now a 12.
A 12? That is, let's see. Oh man, just enough. He rolled a 11.
Nice.
So you yank on this rope and you see you're starting to pull down the tree a massive orc on the back of a gigantic spider. He kind of appears out of the canopy as you're pulling him down. You see he's holding a shield, and his other hand is the rope of this javelin that he threw. As you're pulling him down, you can see the war paint on his face, and you can see that the armor he's wearing is sort of, it has this almost sort of gloss to it, and you realize that it's like chitinous armor, like almost like he made it out of like bug carapace almost. And as you're pulling him down, he sneers at you, and he sort of like does that like wrap the rope around his arm thing, and is getting ready to like yank back to try and pull your friend up to him. Now it is Bretta.
All right. How far away am I from this orc that's being pulled down out of the tree?
That's being pulled down out of the tree. I'll say he's in the tree next to you. So maybe, 10, 15 feet away.
All right. Well, I'm going to use my athletics check this time and just go crazy with it. Bretta looks at that, and she's not going anywhere getting up this tree, and she's going to leap for that guy and see if she can, I guess, grapple him in the tree.
Awesome. Yeah, go for it. Athletics check, please.
Oh, yes. I finally rolled a good roll. Finally. Let's see. A total of 21.
21. Awesome. Go ahead and describe to me what it looks like as you leap from one tree into another one and grab onto this orc who's being pulled down.
Well, I imagine I'm just slightly above him, so that when I see him coming down next to me, I just push off with my back feet and leap and grab with my arms and just like a bear hug around him as hard as I can grab. What else?
Perfect. Yeah, you're grappling him. You make this just insane leap. You all see this happen. She's flying through the air in slow motion, and she just barely catches on and wraps around and grabs him in this bear hug. Awesome. All right, it is now Batty's turn. The goblins are going to take some more shots here. Oh man, need to get some better d20s. Okay, the goblin with the hand axe in front of you, Sigmund, is going to swing it. Ooh, and manages to hit 5 slashing damage with the hand axe. The remaining spider crit misses. And who you can assume to be Ogo sort of roars as you latch onto him, Bretta, and he sort of fumbles around in his belt. He lets go of the rope. You see the rope kind of tumble out of his hand, and Elidor, you feel sort of the pressure of the javelin being pulled out of you. You feel it kind of slacken, and the pain starts to subside a little bit as he lets go of the rope, and he draws out this black blade out of his belt, and you see it almost has like a rusted sort of look to it. And he draws back with this blade, and he's going to stab down on you with this dagger. And you don't have your shield out, I'm assuming, because you were climbing. So that'll be AC 16. Okay. Go ahead and give me a Constitution saving throw, please.
"23."
23. This blade, this ugly, shadowy thing, you feel it pierce you, and it's 6 piercing damage. It burns. It feels hot and cold at the same time, and you feel a sense of just dread and hopelessness sort of fill you, and then you shake it off. You realize that, no, I have the upper hand in this fight. We can win, and you manage to shake off the shadow that was attempting to corrupt you. That brings us to Sigmund.
Perfect. So with the hug, was she able to knock him from the tree, or is he still up there?
No, he's still up there. He's hanging on, and she's essentially like hanging from him. They're sort of fighting on the back of this massive spider.
Okay. Yeah, Sigmund's gonna get kind of excited. All right, I see the plan here, and he swings at the goblin in front of him, hoping to put him down quickly so that he can move over to receive this orc as soon as he falls.
Yeah, this goblin is living on a wing and a prayer, so really all you need to do is hit him. You don't even need to roll for damage.
Yeah, it's enough, and it's kind of this callous swing that is part of his movement to turn around to go to the other direction.
Yeah. Yeah, you knock him aside and begin moving in the other direction. Are you moving towards where Bretta and Ogo are fighting?
Yeah, my plan is to be about maybe 10 feet or so from where I expect him to fall. That way I can move in.
Okay, cool. All right. That brings us back around to Elidor. So Elidor, the javelin is still in you. The barbs on it are going to make it difficult to get out, but it's no longer being yanked. Go ahead.
Yeah. Knowing that he's not going to be able to be an aid to his friends as long as this javelin is stuck in him, he's just going to tear it out, knowing that it's going to cause him some more harm because of the barbs. So would that be you want me to do an athletics?
Yeah, go ahead and give me an athletics.
All right, that's an 18 on the die, so that's a 20.
Okay, 20. So you managed to yank the javelin out. Doing so, the barbs, you take an additional 3 piercing damage. It's very painful to get it out, but now it's out, and you don't have to worry about it anymore.
Right. So there's just so Elidor just breathes heavy as the blood just kind of, you can see Adavar, you would see the blood come out as he yanks this javelin out, tosses it down to the ground, and immediately just tracks the battlefield, getting ready to fire another arrow.
Great. Okay. That was Elidor. So Adravar, you're up next.
So I think that Adravar would be most concerned about this javelin. So I think that we move over to where Elidor is and be inspecting it and just see if there's a way that he can assist with his wound.
Yeah, so you see that, where Elidor has pulled this weapon out, it's just this jagged sort of wound, not clean at all. It definitely will have trouble healing without assistance. And so you can very quickly administer aid if you wish to help staunch the bleeding.
Okay, yeah. So he'll be sort of wrapping that wound while Elidor is sort of in his stance, and he pulls some kind of leaf from a pouch that he has and crushes it up and sort of pats it into the wound and ties this up. And you can go ahead and roll your own 2d8 plus 3.
No, you can roll it. So I'm good with that.
Sure. Oh, you should have rolled it. All right, that's 10.
Well, you're the one healing me.
All right, great. So Bretta, you're up. You're hanging off of this orc mid climbing a tree. He's drawing back to stab you again with this black blade. What would you like to do?
What I'd like to do is to try choking him.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead and give me an athletics check to do that, please.
Alrighty.
And he will oppose it with athletics as well.
Oh, and also before I'm going into this, no, I'm just gonna do it. Yeah. Never mind. Athletics. That would be 15.
Okay, he got a 13. So you managed to get your hands around his neck and start choking him. He sort of, his face contorts as his breath kind of catches in his throat, and he rears back with this dagger.
I mean, I don't know how much damage that'll do.
Yeah, I'll just say that in choking him, I'll basically, if you can continue choking him for a certain number of rounds, you can effectively make him pass out if he doesn't have enough air.
Okay, yeah, I imagine I've got one arm kind of around his chest and one arm around his throat, and I'm just kind of...
Yeah, and effectively, you maintain your grapple on him, which makes it easier for other people to hit him. So,
alrighty then.
So he is going to again try to stab you with this black blade. Oh man, hits again. That's going to be another. That'll be 5 piercing.
Ouch.
And give me another Constitution saving throw.
All right, which one's lucky here? Oh yeah, good lucky dice. 21 total.
Again, you manage to shrug off that feeling of dread that overcomes you as this obviously enchanted dagger slips past whatever armor you're wearing and slides into your flesh. This just white hot pain that overtakes you, but you manage to again shake it off and persist in trying to fell this orc. Okay. There's one spider left on the ground. It sort of takes off after Sigmund, who killed that last goblin, bites into him with its mandibles for 5 piercing damage, and give me a Constitution saving throw, please, Sigmund.
Okay. I'm going to use inspiration.
Okay.
Yeah, that was worth it. 22.
22. Okay, you avoid the poison damage. You managed to shrug it off. The spider sort of lashed onto you from behind, though, with its mandibles. And a couple more goblins in the trees fire off arrows, but both miss, sinking into the ground around you, Elidor, and Adrivar. And that brings us back to Sigmund.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just going to actually do a ready to action this time. Still hoping that it's going to rain orcs anytime soon. I'm not going to worry about the spider that's down there for the moment, because with the grip that she has on him, I'm expecting him to fall quickly. And it's my hope that if I can put him down, everything else will scatter.
Perfect. Okay, Sigmund readying in action. Okay, so Elidor, you are up. So there don't appear to be any enemies around you immediately. You see one spider sort of pursuing Sigmund, and then you see Ogo on his big spider on the tree being wrestled by Bretta. So go ahead and take your turn.
So just quickly, which one would Elidor see as the most pressing? Killing the spider that's chasing after Sigmund, or which would you have the clearest shot for, I guess is what I really should ask.
You definitely have the clearest shot at the spider behind Sigmund, just because At this point, Bretta and Ogo are kind of entangled, but there's also Ogo's spider that you could try to hit, and that spider is big enough where you could get a clean shot without much danger of hitting
That's what he's
Bretta.
going to go for. He's going to try to hit that little soft, sweet spot on that big
go
spider.
for it.
Yes, do it.
I'm going to use my inspiration.
Okay.
13 is a lot better than rolling a nat 1. So.
Yes, absolutely it is. So that hits if it's 13, yeah?
Yes.
Yes, that
and
hits.
I hit for, this is a creature of shadow, so I'm going to hit it for 11 piercing damage with that arrow.
Oh, very nice. 11 piercing damage.
And so Adavar, you would see, even though you've packed in the wound, you would just see it start to bleed again as Elidor draws back his bow and fires.
Yeah, definitely. The arrow strikes this spider pretty dead on, sort of hitting it above where its eyes are located, and you hear it kind of screech and rear back a little bit. And Ogo kind of jostles in his saddle as this thing takes damage. Adrivar, you are up.
So I think Adrivar would, seeing what's going on here and seeing how Sigmund has been so far, that he's not too worried about that. Seeing what Elidor has done, he will try to grab his short bow again from the ground and also fire an arrow at this spider that looks to have been wounded.
Great, go for it.
So that's a 21 and an 8 piercing damage.
8 piercing damage. Awesome. Okay, let me make a quick roll here. Okay. The spider loses its grip on the tree. Bretta, I would like you to give me a dexterity saving throw, please. Okay. All three of you, Ogo, the spider, and Bretta, topple off of this tree as the spider loses its footing, going end over end through the air. Bretta, you land hard on the ground, landing on your shoulder. You feel a crack as you land, taking 7 bludgeoning damage from the fall. And Sigmund, you have your choice of targets here as a handful of things fall through the air towards you. Ogo and the spider both toppling out of the tree.
Yeah, and I think what's going to end up happening is Sigmund will step over Bretta, kind of interjecting himself in between the two. That way she can at least get up, and he's going to bring the hammer to bear on Ogo. Again, trying to push for that break of the morale, if at all possible. That is going to be a 20 to hit with 7 points of bludgeoning damage. And I'm going to use my bonus action to create disadvantage on the next attack against me.
Okay, perfect.
So he kind of readies his shield.
Awesome. Okay, so that was Sigmund's readied action after Adrivar's turn. So Bretta, you are actually up next.
All right. Well, at this point, Bretta's angry again. She starts to kind of like get stronger and bigger and tougher. And oh golly. Can you run down again exactly what position I'm in regards to Ogo and the spider and everybody?
Yeah,
gotten a little confused.
Oh, you guys all three toppled out of the tree, and you sort of landed in a heap. You landed on your shoulder. Ogo actually is landing sort of on his feet. He managed to right himself. So Ogo and the spider are maybe 10 feet away from you where you landed, and you see that Sigmund is facing off against it. Adrivar and Elidor are sort of behind you with their bows drawn.
Would I be able to at least grab my sword out and go after him?
Absolutely.
All right. Can I grab my shield too?
Yeah, I'll say you can.
Okay, cool. Then I'm going to I'm going after Ogo.
Yeah, do it up.
And Great. Will 11 hit?
11 will not hit. He's got pretty heavy-duty armor on made out of this carapace.
All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to smack at him, and it's going to bounce off.
Yeah, bounces
Probably
right off
because
that
I'm in
armor.
pretty bad shape.
Yeah, you're not feeling too good. Absolutely.
No, not at all.
Okay, that was Bretta. It is bad guy's turn. Ogo sort of lands on his feet after being struck by this hammer. He sort of staggers back, putting his back to the tree. He brings his shield to bear and brandishes this dark-bladed dagger. He forgets all about Bretta, who has been strangling him, and he looks at Sigmund, who's just smashed him, walloped him with his hammer, and he looks at you with just seething hate, Sigmund, as he drives forward, coming shield first and coming under with the dagger, attacking you with a disadvantage, I believe.
Yep.
A 3 and a 4. Perfect. Okay. So he drives forward with this dagger. You easily parry it with your shield, just knocking the clumsy attack aside. His spider, however, is also going to bear down on you. Okay, that is going to be a hit for 6 piercing damage with its mandibles as it sort of rears back with its legs and comes down with these mandibles. They sink into you, into your shoulder. And I'll need a con saving throw as well.
It's in the chat.
Perfect. You're on top of it. Okay. That brings us around to Sigmund.
Okay. Yeah, Sigmund's just gonna try and do his best to take control of the situation with a spider at his back and the orc in front of him. He wants to reel around the orc, but pushing the orc against the tree is honestly the best way to go. So Sigmund reels back with his shield, and instead of using it as a normal bashing weapon, he kind of lines it up to do a straight punch and just hits him in the chest with it. I'm attempting the shove maneuver to push him down in front of the tree there.
Okay, cool. Great.
That is going to be a opposed athletics check, and that is a 23 for me.
Okay, I just rolled nat 20. That'll be 24 for me.
Okay. So it's just kind of this pop to the chest, which it wasn't enough. Like maybe he stumbled back like just a one step, but it wasn't enough to knock him off his feet like I had hoped.
Yeah, he's pretty big and burly, and so as you sort of bear down on him, he manages to kind of like, he takes a few steps back and then just shoves you back, rebuffing your attempt to shove him down. That was Sigmund, so that brings us around to Elidor.
All right. Seeing the spider and rider drop down from the tree with Bretta, Elidor would again keep shooting at the large. Now the spider and the orc are no longer. He's no longer mounted on it.
Yeah, they're separate now. They're separated.
Right. So I would fire at the large spider, and that's going to be an 18, and I'm thinking that'll hit. That's 7 points of piercing damage.
7 points of piercing, and you're aiming for the big one, right? The one that Ogo was
the
right.
big one, yeah.
Okay, cool. I make a note of that. Another arrow pierces this large spider. It screeches as it sinks into its flesh. Adrivar, you're up.
All right. And what is Bretta doing right now? They're not still grappled in any form, right?
No, Bretta and Sigmund are sort of facing down Ogo together. There's also 2 spiders over there. One is a lot larger than the other one.
Okay. So Edrivar runs over to Bretta, who obviously does not look to be in so good shape. And he's rifling through pouches, maybe 2 or 3 of them, and it seems like he's not finding something. And then he remembers something, and he pulls out this device that is an alembic, and it looks like there are 2 glass vials almost, and it's already got a prepared mixture in it that's been double boiled. And he just takes a stopper off one side and puts it underneath Bretta, and these fumes just come out of here, and Bretta almost is forced to inhale these, and just this, and she receives 12 points of healing.
Very nice. Okay, that was Adrivar. And we now go to a newly healed Bretta. It is your turn.
Yeah, it was very distracting being healed. That she takes this new strength and energy that she finds from the healing too, and she's going to go ahead and attack. Take that sword of hers and take another slice at Ogo. Let's see. I guess she's still not at her best. It's only 12.
Yeah, not enough. Again, you know, you strike true with your blade, but it just sort of bounces off the jagged edges of this armor. There's lots of little points that the blade just kind of glances off of.
She just gets madder because she's frustrated now too.
I imagine. All right, so let's do the spiders first. One lunges at Sigmund, but he manages to sort of sidestep, get out of the way. The smaller one actually sort of noticing the arrows that are flying from the other direction, takes off towards Elidor and lunges at him. His mandibles find purchase for 5 piercing damage, and I'll need a Constitution saving throw, please, Elidor. Okay, so take an additional 3 poison damage, please. Okay, and Ogo, again, lunges with this dagger, this weapon that just sees evil. Lunging at, let's see, let's roll d6. Okay, lunging at Bretta this time. He hits for 7 piercing damage, Bretta, and I'll need a Constitution saving throw. Okay, again, the blade pierces, incredibly painful, but you are strong-willed and you have a strong constitution, and you manage to shake off the negative effects of the blade. Sigmund.
Sigmund kind of crouches down and he takes the hammer and kind of this open swing like someone with a tennis racket would to return a volley, and brings the hammer across like right up between his knee and hip on that shin bone there. That is going to be a 24 to hit for 7 points of bludgeoning damage.
Okay.
Hey, now, don't you be forgetting about me now. And as a bonus action, he's going to bring his shield to bear again, basically doing the 2-weapon fighter thing.
Okay, cool. So disadvantage on the next attack.
Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Elidor.
All right, cool. So if you're cool with this, Matt, so what happens is Elidor is getting ready to fire his next arrow, and all of a sudden that the smaller of the large spiders comes skittering at him. He turns to shoot at it, but it just overwhelms him, knocking him back, and it bites into his abdomen. He feels it pierce his leather jerkin, and he feels the poison coursing into his blood. And it just burns, and he's trying to shove it off, and realizing it's futile, he lets go of the bow, and he draws his would I be able to strike it with my broadsword if I drew it?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yeah, so he draws it up, and he just kind of like two-hand type, just trying to stab it down into this spider.
Great.
Oh, yes. Nat 20 and max damage. So that's
awesome.
So that's 8. 13, 26 points of damage.
Damn. Okay. Yeah, you kill the spider in one hit.
Yeah, he
Don't
just
describe
literally
it.
just with adrenaline just drives it down into this spider, and it just kind of like starts to shudder, and because I figure he's like pinned up against this rock as this thing, and he drives it down, and it just starts to shudder, and then he just kicks it off him and rips the broadsword out.
And the spider just immediately topples over onto its back. Its legs curl up, and it's dead. So the only enemies remaining at this point are Ogo and the large spider. The goblins that were in the trees have seemingly stopped firing, and it appears as though their cowardice has gotten the better of them, and seeing their leader fall to the ground and being grappled, they've maybe taken off, thinking better of tangling with you four. It is now Adrivar's turn.
Okay. Now again with the staff, Adrivar runs over to where Ogo is and takes a swing with a 17.
17 hits.
And that's 9 bludgeoning.
9 bludgeoning. Okay. Ogo is starting to look a little battered and beleaguered at this point. There's some cracks in his armor. There's black blood flowing from a few wounds. He's sort of desperate, backed up into the tree at this point. Okay. It is now Bretta's turn.
Well, Bretta, holds her shield up in one hand and gets her sword in that left hand. She's left-handed, by the way. And she's going to stab up, kind of see if she can get up into his rib cage with it. And she rolls 17.
17.
Yes.
To hit Ogo, yes.
Yes, to hit Ogo, and that will be 9 points of damage.
Okay. Nice.
Oh, no. I forgot her fury damage, too. I'm sorry. That would be 11 points of damage.
Okay. Even better. Yeah, you strike Ogo hard and true. Another piece of the armor cracks off as you pierce through it.
And she gives kind of another growl of, this time more of satisfaction than anger. But she's kind of glad to get some back finally.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Ogo sort of backed up into this tree. He sort of is just lashing out in fury and rage, desperation at this point. He sees Bretta, he sees Sigmund. He's tried to lash at them with his dagger multiple times to no effect. He gets hit with this staff from Adrivar, and he sort of counterattacks, driving in hard with this black-bladed dagger. That hits for 6 piercing damage, Adrivar, and I will need a Constitution saving throw from you.
And I am using my own inspiration on that. Unless Lionel's stockpile is available to use.
Lionel doesn't have the Scrooge McDuck pool of inspiration anymore.
I am tapped out.
Well, my first roll was a 5 and the second was a 6. So.
Oh, damn. Okay, so you take an additional 8 necrotic damage from this attack, and you immediately take 2 points of shadow. And you just feel this white-hot pain emanating from this wound as he stabs with this black-bladed weapon. And you feel your knees going weak, and it's almost like a fever breaks out across you just immediately, instantly. You get these chills, and you're sweating. You feel completely ill just from this attack.
Yeah, and Adrivar's crystal green eyes dim a few shades, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. The big spider, still in the fight, goes for Bretta, but she manages to avoid its attack, sort of sidestepping under it as it comes down in a lunge. Sigmund, you're up. Your friend Adrivar is not looking so good.
Okay. Is Ogo's spider still there, or has it also turned tail?
Yeah, it is. It is still there. It's not looking so good, but it is still in the fight.
Yeah,
It just attacked Beretta, but failed.
I was gonna say it's becoming a nuisance. It looks like Bretta's got Ogo backed up, so I'm gonna go after the spider, which was a good choice. That is a critical.
Damn,
for
son.
24 points of damage.
Go ahead and describe how you kill the large spider.
It's just a full over the head swing. The hammer comes pendulum down, and it just smashes the spider. Bug guts go everywhere. Its legs spread out. It doesn't even have the natural spider death curl because it's been just flattened right in the center of its abdomen.
Awesome. Yeah, and it goes down with a screech. Okay. Back to you, Elidor.
All right. Having tossed his bow aside, he would immediately run to Adavar's aid. As he does so, he reaches back and he swings this small wooden lacquered shield into it and slips his arm into it. And he's going to impose himself between Ogo and Adavar. And if I can get there in my movement, then I'll make an attack. And if I have to use both to dash, then I'll dash to do that.
No, you can get there and attack on the same turn. Absolutely.
All right, perfect. Oh, nice. So 17.
17 to hit is enough.
Yeah, and that's 11 slashing damage. So he just faints like he's going for Ogo's head, and at the last second, he just riposts. It kind of switches it around and cuts across his thigh, deep into his thigh, trying to bring him down to his knees.
Yeah,
make it easier for Bretta.
He definitely stumbles. He drops down to one knee for a second, again, putting his back to the tree. He's got his shield up in front of him and this black-bladed weapon that is now dripping blood from 3 of your companions that he's stabbed with it. He's breathing hard, blood flowing from wounds in his all over his torso. It is now Adrivar's turn.
So, as Adrivar is attacked and all this happens, he slumps probably against a tree, and as Elidor comes in and positions himself there, he picks up the staff to lift it, and it's almost as though it's too heavy for him to lift now, and it falls to the ground. He just slides down the tree, and he's sitting there now, and that's my action.
My action is to feel sicker than I've ever felt in my entire life. No, absolutely. Okay. Bretta, you're up.
Yes. So Bretta also kind of closing the hole so that the Ogo can't get to Adrivar with her shield in that line too. Then attacks again with her her longsword, and it's 16 to hit.
16 is enough.
All right. So she hits him for 11 damage.
Okay.
Slides it right in between the gap in his armor there where it's been beat up a little.
As you do this, he actually drops his shield, puts his back to the tree, and slides to the ground, holding up this dagger. He's holding the dagger up, sort of still aggressively swiping it weakly back and forth. You see black blood just pooling beneath him. His armor's cracked. He looks past you and sees his spider dead, curled up, Sigmund standing over its corpse. He coughs up black blood. Sigmund, it is your turn.
Hold it. I would like, well, no, never mind. I can't.
Oh, no, go for it.
Okay. I want to call for him to yield.
Okay, yeah. Go ahead and give me an intimidate check if you want to.
I would love to. Although it's probably... Okay. This print's so small I can't read it. Well, given that I'm still exhausted, that's only a 2.
What do you say to him as you try to get him to yield?
I say, "Give, we'll have mercy." But
He says,
There'll
kneel.
be no mercy on either side of this fight. You know as well as I do. Come on and finish it then.
Sigmund, it's your turn.
Sigmund takes the invitation, wanting to purge all of the shadow that is here. He leans in just real close and puts his shield to the orc's throat. You know, you had asked for it, right? And he just jams the shield in. This is technically his bonus action. 21 to hit, and that'll be 8 points of damage. If that doesn't do it, let me know.
That absolutely does it. He was on his last legs.
Yeah, and basically Sigmund's going to hold the shield over his throat, putting his full body weight until the orc stops convulsing and is completely suffocated.
His limbs just, jerking even after you pull the shield off as his last sort of bits of life leave his body. The stench of dead orc reaches your nostrils. The weapon rolls from his hand, and it hits the ground with more weight than it should. It just has this thud, this as it lands on the ground, and you see the blood just kind of dripping off of it as it lays there in the leaves of Mirkwood.
Elidor, seeing the blade fall to the ground, immediately has this sickening feeling wash over him. And I would love to make I guess would it be Shadow Lore roll to try to see
Yeah,
if
absolutely.
I recognize the type of blade?
Yep.
Probably not, because I got a 5.
Anyone who wants to try to identify it can give me a Shadow Lore roll.
So, Matt, I would like to contend for advantage on this roll because my specialty is dark secrets. I've sworn an oath against the shadow and have basically studied to get them.
Yeah, I'll give advantage to you and also to Adrivar for his specialty in weapons of the enemy.
Perfect. Yeah, gotta love that negative intelligence.
So with the 17 is what you needed. Sigmund, you know that this is one of the fabled Morgul blades, one of the darkest weapons of the enemy, carried by wraiths and high-ranking members of Sauron and Morgoth's armies. Now, how it fell into the hands of someone like Ogo, you're not sure, but he definitely wreaks some havoc with it. It's also a weapon that would be foolish to leave. It's something that should be destroyed or kept somewhere safe.
Yeah, and in Sigmund's thinking along those lines, he says, Ogo shouldn't have that blade. It's not for the likes of him. Only the more sinister of the shadow work with blades like that. We can't just leave it here. Anyone who picks it up could become an unwilling pawn of the shadow. It needs to be destroyed.
Adrivar coughs up some blood. Says, the elves will know how.
If nothing else, it'll be a good place to start.
He says, little help here.
I told you, I don't know anything about a body other than how to break it.
I can tell you what to do.
And Sigmund will come over and follow the instructions to the best of his ability.
And I imagine that it takes him a few times on each step. Like, it's like, no, don't do that. Ow, what are you doing? And that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Could Bretta assist him, perhaps?
And it's really the first time since the fight came out that you realize that Sigmund has just 6 just huge purple marks from spider wounds all over his body, where it's managed to slip in between his armor, and he's been going on throughout the fight regardless of it as well.
Elidor would set about ripping off the bottom portion of his cloak to wrap that dagger in, making sure not to touch it, knowing that it's a weapon of shadow. Not having seen a blade like that before, but he knows enough that it's a weapon of shadow. So he would wrap it.
Yeah, you wrap the blade up safely, and even wrapping it up just gives you a sense of dread. And so I'll need a wisdom saving throw from you. Even though you feel the great burden, you feel the full weight of this weapon as you wrap it up and take it, receiving 2 shadow points. You know that it is safest with the elves, and you must take it to the elves yourself.
Yeah, and Elidor would say as much, agreeing with Adavar, saying that we should take this to the hall of the Wood Elf King. I'm trying to remember his name. Oh my gosh, it's bad. I'm a bad elf.
Thranduil.
Thranduil, yeah.
Yeah, that guy.
Thranduil. He's not a very nice guy, but
yeah. So the 4 of you can head out if you want to head into the woodland realm of the elves, seeking sanctuary there. What I'll need is something called an arrival roll from our guide, and what I need is just a D8, and based on the daunting terrain, but also based on some of the successful rolls that you guys made throughout the journey, I've been keeping track. You're going to be rolling it at -1.
Okay. That is a 3.
So, Matt, one of the things that as a wanderer I can do is I can actually take the lead. So if I see Adavar struggling and not being familiar with the territory, Elidor would step forward and maybe help or aid him in doing that. So do you want to just give him advantage?
Yeah, if you want to do something like that, I would say that he can roll again and pick whichever one he wants.
Okay.
Usually the higher the number, the better it is.
All right, we'll go with 5 then.
5, okay. So the 4 of you spend a few more days traveling in Mirkwood. It's a hard journey, especially with the injuries that you've sustained and the sickness that overtook your friend from being stabbed with this mortal blade. But you press on, and after a few more days of travel, you find yourselves in the woodland realm of the elves. And even though this is a place deep in the heart of Mirkwood, it feels like a different place altogether. It is protected by old magic and secreted away by the elves themselves. You are greeted as a friend, for you have an elf of Mirkwood in your party. And when you make it clear that you carry a weapon of the enemy, they bring you inside with all haste. Based on your arrival roll, you are filled with hope as you arrive in the woodland realm of the elves. Your journey was long. Your journey was difficult. It was filled with wounds and pains and sorrow. But you know, as you step across the threshold and enter the elven halls of Mirkwood, you know that it was worth it. And you know that if you had not stepped in, no one else would have. And who knows what would have happened with Ogo and the Mirkwood blade. Many more may have perished on the Old Forest Road. And now that is a road much safer to travel because of your efforts. You four stay and rest in the woodland realm of the elves. And when you depart with the honorary title of Elf Friend. And that is where we will end our session.
Yay.
And isn't that the goal of everybody in Middle Earth, to be an elf friend?
Be an elf friend, man.
I mean, that's
Yeah.
everything there is, man. That's the best goal ever.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
you're like, I'm done adventuring. I'm an elf friend now. I'm good.
Yeah.
Retirement.
Yep. I'm gonna go
gonna live
retire in Rivendell.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys for joining me. This is my first game of Adventures in Middle Earth that I've run. It's an awesome system. I really love it. The journey system just lends itself to really varied, fun encounters and skill challenges and stuff like that. And playing around with the shadow and the corruption and stuff like that is really interesting. So, yeah, if you're at all interested in Middle Earth or just like low magic settings in general, definitely check out Adventures in Middle Earth. It's great. I had a blast.
That was fun.
Cool. All right. Well, we will go ahead and do our sign-offs then, and then call it a night. So left to right, we'll start with Ben.
All right. Thanks, Matt, for running this game for us. My first Middle Earth game, or Adventures in Middle Earth anyway, and thought it was great fun. I love the fellowship journey mechanics that are in the book, and it seemed to work out really well. And that's it for me.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested in running a campaign at some point because the audiences and the fellowship phase and stuff, like they don't really come into play in like a one-shot game, but it'd be fun to play around with multiple journeys and things like that in a campaign. So,
Yeah,
okay,
definitely.
go ahead, Carol.
Well, there again, thank you very much for running this, and I'm really, really glad that we actually got to it. I was a little worried after 2 months that it was never going to happen.
Yeah, you and me
So-
both.
I'm so thrilled we got together for this, and I'm sorry for the people that weren't able to stay in it. That kind of sucked, but no, that's great. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you for joining me. Okay, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. For anybody who's used to seeing me, I'm usually a little bit more active, but I've had a very long weekend that continued into today, so I apologize about that. But I had a lot of fun tonight, even if I don't necessarily look happy jumping out of my seat. I'm really enjoying the way the story flows with the journey. I'm actually trying to take the Scholar out of it and play it in a regular D&D 5th edition game. Just taking out all the shadow bits because it works really well. I like it as a non-magic healer, which is nice to have because we don't really have that in traditional 5e.
It's true. Yeah, it's hard to like have a field medic type character in traditional Dungeons and Dragons, but the Scholar definitely fits the bill. So, and yeah, the journey system is a mechanic that I intend to use like in lots of games because it's something that you could easily just take those and use them in regular D&D as well. So it's just a really good way of sort of structuring sessions. It makes prepping really easy. Okay, Lionel.
Like everyone else has said, thank you very much, Matt, for running this game. It was awesome. This is my second Adventures in Middle Earth game, and I really like it. And I really love all the players. Made it really fun. I do like the mechanic. I like how the journey mechanic works. I like how the game kind of naturally spins the party together to make them feel like they're playing roles in this party. So rather than your traditional like D&D type roles. So I really like that. And you made this really fun. I was actually really hoping I would die in that last fight, but I didn't.
I tried my damnedest, Lionel, but you had a decent healer in the party, so
I know he saved me.
The doomed
I
bastard.
almost managed. I thought leaping off that tree was going to do it, but
yeah, I know. Yeah, you guys were rolling pretty well. You pulled off some pretty awesome stunts in the.
Well, some of us were.
except I couldn't climb a tree to save my life.
Yeah, that's true. It did take you 4 turns to get up there, but it was worth it at least. So,
the leap from the tree onto. I was actually typing that in the chat just as you said you're going to do it. I'm like, yes. You can leap on that guy.
Yeah, no, that was perfect. That was great.
It's like, where is he, man? I'm going after him.
Like, please don't roll bad and just like careen to the earth.
Face plant, yeah.
Oh, that would have been epic too, though.
Yeah, and that's how she died. Oh, unfortunately.
Like it took 4 rolls to get up there, and then you broke.
But Bretta gave her all for the party, and she's finally at peace with her family.
But yeah, thank you guys for joining me. These are 4 awesome players. Definitely check them out. The ones that have YouTube channels. And again, next Tuesday, a week from tomorrow, I will be running some Star Wars West End Games D6 on this channel. So definitely come by and check that out as well. And hopefully I'll be running some more Adventures in Middle-earth. This was a real pleasure to run, so I'll definitely be doing it again. Thanks everyone for stopping by. Take care and happy gaming all.